today. Welcome viewers remotely as well. G'day. Just quick check. Can you please comment in the comment box if you can hear me okay? Yeah, if there's any audio issues. Mitch will be our moderator on chat, so he'll basically be firing any questions that you guys ask. Is there any issues, Mitch? Or?
It says stream starting soon.
It's not showing me. Can you refresh it?
Live. It refreshed itself. Weirdly. Just refreshed itself.
Might be YouTube playing funny buggers. I might just have to restart it.
Yep,
Still doing that? Okay, give me 2 secs.
Oh, what's that? Now it's working again.
Alrighty. So guys, about that, we were on the YouTube channel. There was I just had some issues with Restream. So if you head over to the other live channel I've just created, or the live video I've created, you can watch the stream on that. Alright, let's get started. So thanks guys for coming to BrisPug. Obviously, huge big shout out to Pabs for
Thanks guys for
Alex has just validated the audio, so thanks mate. And obviously, guys who are watching this from home, so thank you for jumping in and joining it as well. Also with you guys at home, feel free to ask questions. We do have a moderator, so he'll ask those questions on your behalf according to chat rules. So obviously, anything inappropriate or anything like that won't be asked. Moving forward, so configuration as code. Is this like the slide deck?
Yep, ready to go.
Configuration as code. So this is basically a meetup for this time. It's just that. So basically, cloud-based configuration management using PowerShell DSC. So our keynote speaker will be Wayne Hoggett. He'll be basically providing that. Obviously, sponsors Hudson Insync Technology. Check them out. They're cool. Hudson's basically, Pablo at Hudson's really nice of us to let us actually use this facility, and obviously he's also catered for tonight. And then kudos to Insync for also catering on the off months. Yeah, off months. PowerShell news. I'm going to hand this over to my lovely assistant Alex.
Ta-da! Right, so a bit of news. It's been about 8 weeks since we last had a session, so we'll go through it. PowerShell Core 6.2.1. Are you supposed to say PowerShell Core anymore, or is it just PowerShell?
Just
6.1?
PowerShell.
Just PowerShell 6.2.1. GitHub link there, just various bug fixes, iterations on 6.2, nothing groundbreaking really. PowerShell 7 was announced, coming out. Bit of a rename. Instead of PowerShell 6.3, they've decided to go PowerShell 7. Presumably reading the articles, it's about more bringing everything into line with the Windows version to put it all.
It's now .NET 5, isn't it, as well? Didn't they rebrand .NET Core and .NET Framework to one .NET?
Yeah, so it's just kind of a naming exercise probably to bring it all together.
Something so it's now 4 goes into its actual successor instead of going to .NET Core.
Yeah.
What I was thinking is that because at the end of the day though, when .NET Core overtakes 4.6.1, you're kind of worried that.
Is there a release date out for that yet? I haven't checked for a release date.
I'm not sure.
VS Code, PowerShell extension 1.12.1 is out, kind of in line with the PS Script Analyzer and PowerShell Editor services. They all kind of go in line, so those are also released. New Dsc Resource Kit for May 2019 is released, all the usual suspects in there. Pesta 4.8.1 is out. I think the last time we spoke 4.7 series was out, so this is 4.80 and 4.81 since we last had the session. The big release option for the 4.8 series is the relaxing of mocks. I don't use it.
When did they add before all and after all?
A lot of them.
Yeah, okay.
I used it like 2 years ago maybe.
I just thought that was the greatest thing ever.
I don't think it's actually documented though.
No, it's
I
not.
remember looking at it and like, oh, that seems useful.
Yeah, but it's not documented.
And one of the big pieces of news that a lot of people have about is the PowerShell preview in Azure Function version 2 runtimes. So a lot of people have been waiting for that one. But if anyone's tested it, I think some people in here have tested it. Michael, you tested it?
Sorry?
You tested it?
Oh,
PowerShell
yes.
Azure Functions.
Yes, sorry.
I want to play with it. So
Yes,
a
it's
lot of
really
people
good.
happy.
It's really good. I
Happy
love
with
it.
When I'm not screwing it up.
So more news would be if we can we come down now.
Or is there more down there? Is there?
No. There's not more down there. I was trying to get Firefox out, but I'm not.
Just hit escape.
It's because I'm still in presentation mode. No. No.
What's going on?
It's me, I don't know how to use PowerPoint.
Oh, okay.
There we go. How do we stop?
Technical problems.
Or you can press escape. That's why I'm an engineer, not a sales guy. So the other piece of news is the PowerShell Devops Global Summit 2019 has been and gone, so all the videos are now on PowerShell.org on YouTube. Some of them are really good. Well, they're all really good. Some are good. That's a bit presumptuous.
Savage.
Some are good. Some are crap. No, they're not. They're really good.
They really are good.
Yeah, there's some good stuff in there, so well worth a watch, depending on the flavour of what you're into. And now we don't really have a module of the month, this month I've got a GitHub repo of the month, and it's by a company or a guy called Evotech. So this is a Polish guy who's been popping up on the PowerShell subreddit quite a lot in the last 12 months. So he's written out a couple of big scripts he's working on PS Win documentation. So he worked a lot on reporting, but all he's done is split all his modules out into proper modules, published them in the PowerShell gallery. They're actually really useful, and they're written really well. So there's PS Write Word, PS Write Excel for output into Word and Excel without having to have Word and Excel installed, which is great because you don't always necessarily have them. PS Teams for sending notifications to Teams channels through webhooks. PS Win documentation is the main one he works on as his main application, which is for documenting Active Directory environments, AWS 365, and there's more coming in there as he goes through. And there is also -emo, which is the HTML reporting module he works on, which spits out lovely tabularized HTML tables for reporting. So very handy if you're writing reports, well worth a look. They're all in the PowerShell gallery, spit it out. And yeah, well worth a look. I'll put the link to the GitHub repo in the Slack channel for that as well. So yeah, well worth a look, especially if you're doing automated reporting. There's various sub modules in there as well for writing just straight HTML as well. And that is it for presentation. I pressed
Just
the
give it a
button.
second.
Oh, there we go. Scripting games.
Scripting games.
So we're back to Michael's announcement of scripting games.
Yeah, scripting games.
Because somebody else have yours.
So I was actually having a bit of a hard thought on what we wanted to do. I did definitely think the universal dashboard was really good. I wanted to step it up because I'm a bit of a troll. So and it's also a really good challenge as well. So the goal, and it's not just in a month, just obviously this is over a couple months, just putting it out there, is to write a Rubik's Cube solver. So you can basically give it a specific set of parameters and it'll be able to give you the output on how to solve that Rubik's Cube based on turns. So turn this, turn this. Get extra points if you...
What's the model though? What's the starting model? What's the starting point?
Whatever.
Randomized.
Yeah, randomized starting point. You get extra points if you can visualize it. It's going to be a tough one because PowerShell's not really visualized. So me being a troll, I want to see, like, actually also because it's like push people. So one of the things as well with it is you can use JSON or you can use JavaScript, like obviously to animate things like that. So it's not like hard coded. You know, you don't have to use XAML. You don't have to use WinForms. You can use HTML to animate. So just putting that out there, that definitely simplifies it. But the core logic needs to be in PowerShell. Is there anything else? That's about it.
Can I troll you back and like hook into like some web service and just like send a link there? It's in PowerShell.
You hypothetically can. That's definitely a way to do it. But if extra points, if you could do it, like just from a technical perspective, it's all algorithms. So it's basically just a matter of writing a process to be able to use those predetermined set of algorithms to be able to actually come to a result. I kind of mulled it over in my head. Realistically, you just need a three-dimensional array that you need to maintain.
Don't do way too much.
But
Yeah.
that's what I've kind of mulled over. But I kind of really want everyone to do it. I've recently built built another computer, so and also I asked the manufacturer to send me a whole bunch of free stuff. So that'll be the prize.
Wait.
Anyway, let's welcome Wayne, our keynote presenter for Configuration as Code.
Thank you.
I want to start with some questions. Who does DevOps? Okay, awesome. Yep. Who? Because not a lot of Windows engineers, PowerShell engineers will admit that. Who's a developer? Not enough hands, considering we're a PowerShell user group. Every hand should be up. That's cool. And who uses a configuration management tool of some sort? Okay. Okay.
The
All
answer
right.
button.
yeah. Who uses group policy?
Oh, yeah, engine group.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. Some people use configuration management. That's good. All
There's
right.
another hand in the chat.
Oh, good. Another hand in the chat.
Yeah.
Excellent. Awesome. So I'm going to talk about configuration management using PowerShell DSC. My hope here is to inspire people to do configuration management in general, not just use DSC. But no matter what configuration management tool you're using, you should find some useful information here. You probably can leverage DSC in whatever tool you're using. Now, one more question is, who has done any DSC previously? PowerShell DSC previously? Okay, a couple. All right. Yeah.
Played around.
That's good. That means my first 5 slides are not a complete waste, so that's great. So let's get into why we need configuration management. So first problem is setting up servers manually is time consuming. It takes too long to set up a new server. People complain that it's taking too long. Second problem is that servers that are set up manually can drift from the install configuration, either accidentally or on purpose, and this is called configuration drift. So a configuration management platform should solve that by maintaining the configuration. Another problem is that applications have several dependencies that make up the recipe for the application. So normally you don't just install an application and it's done. Normally there might be some services or some supporting files, some configuration that you need. You need to have all of those things in place to make the configuration work. And often a single component failure results in total failure. A missing configuration file, a missing username and password. Any of those issues can result in failure of the entire application. So how can PowerShell DSC help with this problem? First thing is it's declarative. So you don't specify the procedure for setting the configuration, you specify the end result, i.e. the desired state. The second way it helps is it's idempotent. For anyone who wonders what the hell that word is, that's idempotent. That means that you can repeat the same process over and over again and it will produce the exact same result. So you apply DSC, it'll always result in the same configuration. A bit of a how-to guide is coming up. So 3 steps for configuration success. You author the configuration, then you stage it, then you make it so, which is my favourite part. Now, I've got 6 to 7 demos in this. Hopefully they all go well. I had problems with my 7th demo. It's getting it up and running. Hopefully it goes smoothly tonight. Let's see how we go with the demos. So I'm just going to demo a basic DSC configuration so you guys can see what they look like.
Well, this comes from as well, right?
What's that,
Bob,
sorry?
the engineer, set up the server a year ago. Nobody knows how he did. He's left now.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Configuration helps with configuration management helps with documentation.
Down to servers should be cattle, not pets.
Yeah, that's right.
Would you say that configuration drift is like a more of a it kind of definitely kind of moves towards that, servers as pets than as cattle?
Yeah.
It kind of there's those little bits and pieces that define that specific task or that specific role in that server.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have one little piece of configuration that no one knows anything about, and if it breaks, the application breaks, you're in a very bad place. Yeah. And the idea of making your configuration code is that it's easy to document it.
90% of businesses, that is.
So I've got my demos here. I'm just going to, I might be doing this slowly, but bear with me. I'm just going to resume them all so that they're ready.
I've often thought about using DSC for we do a lot of Exchange MSAs, Managed Services Agreements.
Oh yeah.
Stop config drafts and stop the clients messing around with Exchange servers and messing around with the virtual
Yeah, for
directories
the
and
core
stuff.
stuff, it definitely makes a lot of sense. Just to keep everything in line. I'll start all of these. Hopefully they all start. Oh, they're all stopping, so that's great.
You've got Firefox running probably out around.
Ethernet switch may not exist.
Yeah. I expected this would happen. Let me just fix this. So I'll just start them actually. Actually, I'll just edit the settings and I'll just start them. Apologies for that. just do the next one. Now the idea of having VMs for my demos was that I wouldn't run into issues with the demos. So that's great that I ran into issues.
Always had issues with Hyper-V networking.
Yeah.
I just found between some of the other providers, it's just seems to be more complex, or something goes wrong with it.
Yeah, and they actually really stumped me with Hyper-V this time around. I've been a long time Hyper-V user, and they added in the latest version of Windows 10, they added the default switch, which does automatic NAT for you.
And that's what I always wanted previously, and when they did it, it was fantastic, but I stopped using it. But
Yeah.
before that, I was always like, oh, why can't I just have it
Just
run in the
automatically just
background,
work.
give me internet, I don't care about other things.
Yeah, and the default switch on my particular laptop, I needed to do a network card driver update and then reboot my computer before it was actually usable. I was getting like less than 100 kilobytes per second throughput.
Just tend to use VirtualBox.
Yeah.
It's always a network.
It works.
Hmm.
Works.
I think it even works with Hyper-V now. So if you have both Hyper-V installed, you can have VirtualBox.
At the same time.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, because usually.
Alrighty, sweet. Demo was up. So this is a basic DSC configuration. I've got some installs here. So,
Are you able to make it bigger? Sorry.
oh yeah, I probably
Yeah.
can do that. I've never done that in the IC. Am I doing that somewhere here? Zoom
On
in.
the bottom right corner,
Oh,
you got the
there we
scroll
go.
bar.
Perfect. Yep. Of course.
So just to stop you there, how do you get DSC from the Powershell gallery?
Oh yeah, okay, let me explain from scratch then. So DSC is on every Windows device from, I don't even know what version up, it's been around for a long time.
Windows 98.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it was 2008 R2,
Really?
not sure when it first came around.
I thought it was added in PowerShell 4.
No, it was PowerShell 3. I thought it was 3.
It's built into Windows, so it definitely came in a base install of Windows.
I thought it was part of the WMF because it uses the MOF and like
Yeah.
WSMan with the
There's all the.
Yeah, I'm trying to work out which version of Windows got it natively though.
2008, 2008 R2 sounds right.
Yeah.
It definitely isn't pre-Vista, pre-2008.
Yeah, okay. So 2008 R2
Oh,
type.
so-
Something
yeah.
like that. Yeah. So you don't need to install anything to use DSC. It's ready to go.
But the modules are in.
Yes, so you do need to add modules to add functionality to DSC. So the first couple of lines here is I'm getting a couple of modules from the PowerShell gallery. Now they have different modules for DSC and they have a built-in PS desired state configuration module as well. Now what you'll see is some of them end with DSC, and that's the new naming convention. When you go out to the PowerShell gallery, you may also see some starting with an X. The X means experimental, and that was the old naming convention. They also had a C, a lowercase c at the start for community. That's also the old naming convention. So now DSC modules that are only DSC or include DSC resources now end with the DSC on the end of them. Majority of them are named with DSC on the end if they only have DSC resources in them.
Pretty sure there's a commandlet that can actually narrow down DSC modules. I think it's like find module or find DSC resource or something like that.
Yeah. There's a whole range of DSC command lists that make that sort of thing easier. So the idea of this demo was to just show you what a configuration looks like, apply it, and then verify it, just to give you an idea of where it is, and then I'll go into some more detail around it. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to import the DSC resources. So here I'm installing them on the computer, and then here I am importing them. Now I'll explain the installation in more detail later on, but right now I'm installing them because I'm authoring the DSC here, not because I'm running the DSC here. Now, I've already explained what each name means. So you defined your configuration. Now your configuration is just a function, so it uses the configuration notation there, and then you give it a name, and then open curly braces, import the resources that you want to use, then declare a node block, give it a name, and localhost is the default name. You can call it whatever you want, and then you declare your resources. Now, I'll just show you here. So this is a computer resource, and I have given it the name set computer name, and then I'm declaring a bunch of settings that I want applied here. And I'll just run.
Is that set computer name a human name, or is
That's
that
right.
actually?
No, this is any name that you like. So this is what you name the resource here. You can give this any name here.
Does it have to be one word? Can you put spaces?
You probably could put spaces in there if you wanted to, and you could probably just put some quotes around it to make that work. I imagine that will work.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never put spaces in it, but you could do that. Yeah.
Don't put spaces in config.
Yeah, you can make it whatever you want, I imagine. And you can dynamically generate these, which I'll show in future as well. Get Dsc Resource computer. So what I'm going to show you here is how I found out what syntax I need to use to declare this. I'll just drag this up. Hopefully this is nice and zoomed in as well. Touchpad's just acting up a little bit there, and then it doesn't then it doesn't zoom up. So you can see here to work out what I needed to write in this configuration block. Looks good. Yep. So the only thing that's required is, so you can see here, you declare it by writing the word computer, then you give it a name, and that's the resource name that you want to use. Then the only thing that you actually need to declare is the name, and the rest is completely optional. Now, so I've declared description and workgroup name. You can declare as many of these as you want, and you can, and some are dependent on each other, and you can get help on the rest of the command online if you need to. They've got very good documentation on these ones because they're built into the either that module or that module. Now you can see I've got more resources declared here, so you can see it's all declared. There's no actual code that's executed here. I'm just declaring what I want it to be. So what this configuration is going to do is it's going to set a computer name. It's going to create a file share folder. So this is a file resource. I've given it that name. It's going to ensure that this directory is present on the computer, and then it's going to actually create an SMB share, and then set the everyone full access permission on the share. So I'm just going to collapse that now. So I don't need to run the top one because I've already run that to save us a little bit of time. So I'm just going to run the configuration itself. And then that just simply loads that function, that Dsc configuration function, into memory. Now I'm going to enact the configuration, and that has generated a moff file in this directory that I'm sitting in here.
Is moff a binary?
Moff is a management object format. It contains the settings that's required to apply the Dsc configuration to the computer.
So you compile the Dsc config down into a moff and then deploy the moff.
That's right. Yep. So you compile it into a moff, and then the Dsc engine reads the moff and applies it. Okay. Yeah. And so I've enacted it there now. Now I'm going to start Dsc configuration. I'm just going to drag this up a little bit here. So you can see here, now I've got a moff file. I'm telling it to apply the moff file from the directory, which is in ctemp myDSC, and then I'm going to do a restart. Let's check and see what other steps I've got after this. So that's good, yeah. So start this. So you can see here the Dsc engine is now firing up, and it's now applying the configuration. Now it's done the set computer name, and it's said that it'll restart. I'll need to restart the computer to finish. So we'll just do a restart, and then we'll come back. Now I'm imagining that people are going to have a lot of questions because there's a lot of content in tonight's presentation. So while this is restarting, I'll pause for some questions if anyone's got any.
I think you have to enable Win Remote, when we're in remote in start Dsc. Because I have tried it on a local host before doing a bit of node configuration. I think you need to pre-enable all that stuff.
No, Dsc is enabled by default. Yeah, I don't need to.
Sure, when I tried it.
There's a Dsc engine that you can configure, which ties into like the push mode and how it actually runs.
And I'll go into detail into configuring that as well. But it's enabled and ready to go. You don't need Windows Remoting to
if you
use it.
Do it on a currently configured server, does it blow the config away and add its own?
Yeah.
So if you had a pre-configured Exchange server and you overlaid, say,
So
DSC.
yeah, that's a very good question.
Does it
So
blow everything away and just put its own in there, or does it overlay on top and just?
no. So if you have a computer that's already configured, let's say that that's one of those folders that I created there.
Yeah, like you've already got a domain join file server or something like that configured.
Yeah, so it's already got that file. That share already exists. It's already shared with everyone. There's already a folder there. It's not going to delete the folder and then recreate it. It'll just ensure it's already in that state, and then it'll pass. So I'll just go back in there again.
Yeah, because it's checking the state.
Yeah.
It's there.
So, but you can have multiple configurations.
You can't actually have multiple configuration, or you can, but it's
You
through
compile it as
partial.
one.
Yeah, you compile it as one. Yeah, one MOF file.
Oh, so you do multiple configs and build into one MOF.
Yeah. So I'm going to actually go into a lot of detail on that as well a little bit later on, because there are some limitations around DSC, and I've got some strategies for getting around some of the limitations.
You can sign MOFs as well, I think.
Is that right?
Can you sign MOFs? Sign them?
Sign them, yes you can, yeah. So I encrypt them and sign them. Okay, so now that that's finished, it has applied the configuration. So I just want to show you here, what it did was, it's doing so it does a DSC engine, does starts the test, and then if the test passes, it skips the set. So it has the correct computer name, so it's not going to reset the computer name. And then for the second object here, and that might have actually not it. Oh, it actually was. It actually was the computer name resource that it was setting there. And then now, if everything else is done, it'll do tests and skips, and if it needs to, it'll do a set. But everything was set, so there was no need to do anything there. And then we can just check. And obviously, we have the computer name that we asked for, and we have the file share that we asked for. So that DSC is applied to that server. That's all I wanted to show in that demo, because I'm going to go into a lot more detail later on. Just wanted to briefly show you that one. Oops, I think I hit the wrong button maybe then. See what happens there? I did. Give me a second.
There's DSC resources in that news.
Yeah.
How look at that?
Yeah. So you can see how I followed those steps.
I was actually surprised how many DSC resources there are out there.
There's heaps of them.
Like,
Yeah.
you do full Active Directory DSC resources, keep your structure the same.
Yeah, and where I work, we DSC is our configuration management tool. We build all of our new servers as code, and we use PowerShell DSC to do that. So it is production ready, despite the fact that it has very little. There's not too many people using it, and people seem to have issues with it. Hopefully, we'll deal with some of those issues today. So issues with what I just showed you is that doesn't scale. So yeah, you can author a configuration, you can apply a configuration on a single server. It doesn't really solve any problems. You'll end up with a whole bunch of repeated code, because you'll end up with a configuration for every single server. They'll all have heaps of the same stuff in it, like setting the computer name, setting the IP address. All that stuff will be repeated over and over again. And there's too many hard-coded values, like IP addresses, computer names, all that sort of stuff. So what I just showed you is just a basic configuration on how to apply it, but it's not production ready. I want to introduce you to configuration data. So configuration data is a feature of PowerShell DSC that separates the what from the how. So the configuration is the how, and the what is the configuration data. I'll go into configuration data. So configuration data is a hash table, and I'm going to give you a demo of it so you'll understand what I'm talking about in a minute. And there are built-in variables when you use configuration data. They include the all nodes variable. So when you create configuration data, and you'll see this in the demo in just a minute, you can declare multiple nodes in the configuration data, and these are the nodes are the servers that you're configuring. And you get an array of all nodes passed in when you pass in the configuration data, and you'll see this in just a minute. And then when you for each through the all nodes collection, you end up with a node variable, and that represents the current node that you're configuring, so the current server. And then you end up with another variable called configuration data, which contains the entire PowerShell hash table for the configuration data. So I'll give you a demo of configuration data. And then I'm going to pause for questions, because I know there was like a whole bunch of gobbledygook potentially there. So what I have here
Can you
is,
zoom it in?
yep, sorry, yep. What percentage do we think we want to be at?
That's good. A
Yep.
little bit more maybe.
That's good.
Okay,
Yep.
so I have exactly the same configuration as I had before, except you'll notice some subtle differences. There's all nodes.node name, and then I have node.node name. I have these variables in here instead of using hard-coded computer names. Some of it's still static, but there are some variables in there. And the way those variables are getting in there is I have configuration data here, and essentially it's just a big PowerShell hash table. Then you have to have an all nodes block, and this is just an array in a PowerShell hash table. And then for each node you have just another hash table, so it's an array of hash tables. And then you have whatever
It's a hash array of hash tables.
That's right. It's a hash table with an array of nodes, and each node is a hash table. Now,
There's no way that could go wrong.
this is flawless. So, and the properties that you declare here are completely up to you. Node name is the only one that's required. And the rest of the properties are all up to you. You can declare whatever you want here, and they just become variables that you can access in your configuration. And you can also have non-node data, which is data that doesn't apply to a specific node. So what you'd use non-node data for is a list of Active Directory sites that you're going to join, a list of Active Directory domains, any other arrays or hash tables that you want, any other properties that all nodes may use. You declare that in your non-node data. And non-node data doesn't need to be called that. You can call this whatever you want. So you could call this 80 sites.
So in essence, that basic, like that hash table is, in essence, just is being loaded in memory just before, obviously, loading the configuration. So
Yep.
yeah, okay, that makes sense.
So I'll show you what I mean by that here. So essentially what I do is I just dot source in my configuration, and then I import the configuration data. So I just import PowerShell data file. Got an uppercase L randomly in there, that's just bugging me. And then I enact the configuration with the and then I compile the configuration with the configuration data.
So the DOS source mydsc.ps1, that's the configuration?
That's right, yeah. My DSC was that first one we went to here, that's the actual configuration here.
Yep, perfect.
And then the configuration data is the other file.
Yep.
And then I am, so based on what we've seen here, how many MOF files do we expect to get when I run this?
1.
2. 2 nodes, 2 MOF files.
Yeah.
So I expect to have a print server and a file server. I'll run this.
And then there's 3.
Yeah, and there's 3. Who is this idiot? So, so we ended up with a MOF file for each server. So each node is a server, and then we ended up with a MOF file for each one. I actually wouldn't mind showing you inside the MOF file, just briefly. I'll just open this with whatever it'll
Notepad.
open it with. And as you can see in here, it's simply exactly what we asked for. So there's our file share folder, there's our computer name, there's the work group we want to join. It's all the same information. So you end up with the same information. It's just in a format that's not particularly human readable. So that's why Microsoft has DSC that you write in PowerShell, so you don't have to write this. And it generates this for you. So we ended up with that. I'm going to go into a lot more detail on configuration data. Does anyone have any questions on configuration data before I move on? And I know I'm going at a rapid pace because I have an end goal I want to get to. And I want to give you like a super
Can you
quick
include like
crash course.
certificates with this, or do you have to have an external source you pull a certificate down from?
Yeah, so you'll end up with a place where you can pull certificates from. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
This is like,
Can you bundle in resources with it to make a big fat MOF file that then deploys, so to speak?
yeah, I'll explain where you can get resources from in a
Yes.
few demos. But essentially what I'm taking you on here is the journey of DSC. So you start with this, and you write your first DSC configuration, then you might be like, oh, that doesn't really work, like I can't scale this, I can't actually put this in production, where do I go to?
I have a chat question.
Yep.
Shane says, do you keep the MOF files or do you just recreate them each time?
Oh, that is a good question. So you,
I suppose you have to regenerate if there's a change.
yeah, so once the DSC engine has the MOF file, you don't need to keep it. You can trash the MOF file. The DSC engine has the configuration then. It doesn't. You don't need to keep a copy of it on the server. In fact, it's a good idea to delete them.
How do you deal with secrets?
we will cover that. It's an excellent question. And it's one of the first questions I had when I started doing this myself. I'm like, I can't just put a plain text password in here. What's going to happen? This is not going to work.
Just tap it off the screen and be fine.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, just out here. Yeah. Here is my super secret password. Wait, what's this horizontal scroll bar? Oh, there's all the passwords. So yeah, definitely a good question to ask. So let's have a. I don't know why that just dinged.
I think it was my computer. Oh, it's Plantronics headset.
No.
I wonder why I recognised it.
Okay, I got it right this time, yay. So I want to talk to you about why that's not going to work, why that's not going to scale. So I'm just literally telling you ways of doing things and then telling you why you shouldn't do them. So I'm going to talk to you about a better way of doing configuration data. What you want to do is, and if anyone has been in IT for any period of time, you will have heard about role-based configuration or role-based access. You will have heard of these terms before. So when you're designing your configuration data, you want to break it down into, break your configuration items down into shared roles. So a file server role, a print server role, a web server role, a SQL server role. And then anything that's shared, you put in there. Anything that's unique, you can define on the node. So I'm going to do another demo straight away. I'm going to show you role-based configuration data. By me going through this, if you decide you want to use DSC at any point and you want to use DSC itself, I'm hoping I'll save you a lot of time by not having to go through all of the stuff that I've had to go through on the journey of writing DSC. So what we have here is exactly the same configuration, but what I have is I have some if logic in my configuration. So if the node's role contains the word file server, then set up the shared folder. And if it contains print server, then we're installing the print server features. So configuration is exactly the same, except I'm only doing what I need to do on the servers that have the specific role. So I'm just going to jump over to the configuration data, and you can see here I have multiple nodes, and then I have a print server that has the print server role declared. And by the way, you can call roles whatever you want to call it.
Just an arbitrary string.
Yeah,
That'd be great,
but
yeah.
call it roles. You can call it whatever you want, but just start with roles. And then, or rolled, if you don't want to use plural. And then you can define array, and then you can use contains like you saw in the configuration there to check if it exists.
Oh yeah, of course, because you have a print server and a file server.
That's right, so we've combined file and print server, so we have multiple roles there, and obviously that mod file is going to end up with both of the configurations in it. So exactly the same, except now it's more modular. Whenever I need to deploy a new file server, I can literally just copy this block, print server, sorry, and then give it a new name, and then I can end up with a new server with exactly the same configuration as the previous one. And you'll notice that the node name is still going to be the same. It's not going to share the name because that's unique to the node, but anything that's not unique to the node, it's going to that's shared, it's going to be defined in the role.
Hey, wait.
Yeah.
Can you zoom it in?
Oh, sorry, yes, I forgot about the zone. Yes. Can you remind me every time?
Okay.
Immediately, so I don't forget. So there we go. So there's that one. For anyone who didn't see the configuration data, and I'll make all the source code available at the end of the talk as well. Although what you really care about is the stuff at the end, not the stuff at the start. So exactly the same situation here. There's my configuration data. We expect to see how many mod files this time? Three mod files when we compile the configuration. And I'm randomly going to uppercase L in there again. Sorry, just bear with me.
It's alright, PowerShell's case insensitive.
Yeah, it just bugs me. I twitch, but PowerShell doesn't mind. So there we go. We got our three mod files. One that's a print server, one that's a file server, and one that's both.
Does that mod file contain the if logic, or is that done during the generation?
Yeah, so it doesn't contain the if logic, and that's done in the compilation job, where we actually compile it here. So we are compiling this configuration with this configuration data, and that's how you end up with the loop, and the three mod files, and then the different configuration in each mod file. So in that mod file, I'm not going to open it up. Does anyone want me to open it up? No, skip it. You'll end up with both the file server and the print server settings. Any questions on that before I move on? No, good.
There was one question in the chat just from before. Are MOF files industry standard or specific only to Microsoft?
They are an industry standard. Yeah, and that's why Microsoft went with MOF files. Yeah, when they first started using DSC. They could have chosen not to do that. So DSC is an authoring tool for MOF files. And MOF files are an industry standard. Oops. Show you here, and that loads. So that's that demo. It's not that bad, I'm making you cry.
No, it's just going off. Sorry.
Okay, fair enough. So now I want to talk to you about dynamic configuration. So the first thing you're going to realise when you start going through the process of what I've gone through there is that you're going to be editing the configuration file a lot, and you're going to break it a lot. We're all going to do it. So what you want to avoid doing is editing the configuration file at all and just editing the data files, which is the configuration data. You don't want to touch the configuration itself. You want to have it automatically generate the configuration based on the data you pass it. Explain to you how that's done in just a minute. So you want to avoid that, and you want to edit the data file. I'll give you another demo. And there's a lot of demos, and please ask questions as we go. Jump over here. So dynamic configuration data. Can everyone see that okay, or can I zoom this somehow? I actually haven't zoomed this.
It's Control Plus, I think, is it?
Oh, good luck to me.
Zoom the whole.
Yeah.
That's probably enough, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we have here is we have server configuration, and this is a rapid jump from where we just were. Rapid jump from where we just were to a point where you don't edit this file, the server configuration file. You create it once, and then you never edit it again, because when you edit it, you're going to break it. So that's the goal that you want to get to. So we've got a function here, and this is actually, you can thank Gail Collaz. He actually created this function. I've tampered with it a little bit, so it's actually his work. What it does is it declares the configuration for you based on the data. So it dynamically creates the configuration blocks for you based on the data. So you don't need to have all the configuration blocks written out. So that is a very simple script that creates a script block and then invokes it.
So it's a tool to create the configuration to create the MOF.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. We get yeah.
Does time slow down?
Deception. That's right.
Does time slow down?
Yeah. You're gonna take a spinning top with you, you'll be fine. All right. So you can see here. Here's my configuration now. It's only 10 lines or so, and it's with a few spaces in there. And what it does is it loops through each of the nodes and then invokes that function to write the configuration block for you. And then it loops through each of the roles for that node and writes the configuration for you. So that's all you write for your configuration, and then you do the rest in configuration data. Who have I lost? Yeah, so what this is essentially doing is allowing you to have this configuration file here, and I need to use my mouse so people can't see where I'm pointing, have this and never edit this, because when you edit this, and I'll go back to that previous example here, if you have these if statements throughout your configuration, and these, this sort of stuff, you can end up making mistakes in here. And then your configuration is not going to compile, and you're going to end up in a situation where you're going to be debugging it, and to be honest, debugging DSC is not easy. So you want to avoid editing the configuration file where possible. So we have the most basic configuration file you can have, and then everything you edit is in configuration data, and makes debugging really easy. Now, this is going to sound low-tech, but it can be really difficult to work out where the error is in DSC. So in the configuration. So often I will find myself just grabbing chunks of configuration data and pulling it out, and then working out which part's broken before I start troubleshooting it. And I'll explain to you what I mean by that in a minute.
Okay, so what you're doing there is, in essence, you're doing your logic within that, and then if the logic does work out, then you're actually building that MOF file for that specific action. So if it's a file server, create a MOF file to create a file server.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you'll end up with a MOF file for every single node.
Yeah.
But what it will have is everything that node needs, including all of its roles and all of its individual configuration, all in its one MOF file. But if there's a problem with the part of that configuration, you can take that data file out and then see if the configuration compiles.
Yeah, so it's, yeah,
It
gotcha.
eases troubleshooting.
Yeah.
And when someone makes an error, they're not going to make an error in here, they're going to make an error in the data files. So it's easier to find.
I'm guessing it'll be easier to understand as well based on the fact that if you have, like, yeah, you're going to have multiple MOF files.
Yep.
Those multiple MOF files, you know, let's say, yeah, you said you got that specific area, you just comment that one out and then.
Yeah, and all you do, and I'll explain to you what I'm going to do here in a minute, but you don't actually touch the MOF files. All you do is touch the PowerShell data files. You'll just move them out of the location that they're in,
Yeah.
so that they're not compiled.
Yeah.
That's how you can remove that. Yeah, add a new node in. All of a sudden, it doesn't compile. You just drop that node out. You can drop the role out. Then it'll still compile. It eases in troubleshooting because troubleshooting DSC can be tricky.
Does, like, in terms of testing, I know this is a pretty silly question, but does Pesta support DSC?
Yeah, so, and that's actually something that people recommend. So when you build your DSC configuration, what you can do is you can build it, and then you can spin up resources in Azure DevTest Labs, for example.
And then you run your tests.
Apply the configuration to the nodes,
Yeah.
then run your Pesta tests against the nodes to see if they're in the desired state,
Yeah.
and then you know whether your configuration is what you expect it to be.
In terms of, obviously, you can't validate the configuration based on the MOF file or, you know, pre that, so you can only do Pesta testing after the MOF file's been applied.
Yeah, you can do it pre, so what you can do is you can generate the MOF file and then use Pesta to check what's in the MOF file.
Yeah.
And then you know that you're going to have certain resource blocks declared because you've asked for them to be declared.
Yeah.
So you can check in the MOF file to see that those were declared.
Okay.
But you can also run the testing after the fact to actually log onto the server and then see, is the IP address set to what I asked it to be set to? Are the features installed that I asked to be installed? Is the service running that I asked to be running?
Okay.
Etc.
So you could, you know, hypothetically, if you really wanted to go that extra mile, you could do a pre, like a compile change and then a post change and see if there's any sort of differences.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's really
So now what I'm doing here is, and I'm going to explain this, so what I'm doing here is I'm dynamically building the hash table based on the content that's in these two folders here, nodes and roles. So what I'm doing is I'm declaring this all nodes block that I mentioned earlier, so this will have a collection of all the nodes in it. And then I'm going to have a roles block, and in there I'll have each of the roles and the settings around those roles, and I'll show you what they look like in a minute. And then I'm literally just looping through the directories for nodes and roles, and then importing the PowerShell data file and adding it to the hash table.
Okay, so you're basically, in essence, you're dynamically building the configuration. So you could have a whole bunch of MOF files out there.
A whole bunch of PowerShell data files, yeah. A whole bunch of PowerShell data files out there, and all I'm doing is just gluing them together into one big data file. Now the reason I'm doing that is because when you pass the configuration data in, it can only be one variable. You can't pass in 10 configuration data variables. You can only pass in one.
Can you show an example?
Yeah, so I'm gluing them all together. So I'll show you down the bottom here. So you can see here, actually I'll scroll up a little bit. I've got configuration data here, and then I'm building up my hash table and then my arrays, and then here I am adding each node, the data from each node. They're all hash tables, and I'll show you those in just a sec. Actually, I'll show you one now because it makes more sense. So I'm looping through all of the nodes there, and then I am adding in the configuration for the nodes.
This is all stuff above the DSC layer. So this is some special magic, special sauce that you've applied for your DSC configuration.
That's right.
So yeah, compile on that.
Because essentially what I'm doing here is I'm showing you, DSC is a great configuration engine. There's, like, no matter what configuration tool you're going to use, DSC is great for configuring Windows Server. It does an excellent job of doing that. And there's so many modules out there that you'd be mad to ignore it. The problem with DSC is that it's...
Writing MOFs.
Yeah, well, the problem is that there's no administration layer, or the administration layer is kind of missing. So we, as PowerShell engineers, are building our administration layer ourselves. There's a whole bunch of people in the community. Gail, that I mentioned earlier, he's built a PowerShell module called Dayton that takes YAML files in the configuration data and then compiles the MOFs with YAML. So they don't need to be hash tables.
Just use Ansible.
Yeah, so as you can see here, and if you're using Ansible, would you end up with using the DSC engine to apply the configuration?
You can. We've got a DSC module where you basically type in the resource name and then
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah,
free form
providers.
parameters.
Yeah.
And then that links into the inventory and other
I
systems.
think the older chef's got the same as I.
Yeah, it's a very common thing.
Yeah,
But they all utilise DSC when they actually get down to it.
yeah. So as you can see here, this
There's
is
one question, sorry.
yeah.
From Glenn, he just asked, and that just goes back to the previous one, would you really want to pass MOFs post-generation? It's not really something you would do?
I don't know.
Do you want to pass them for testing to make sure they worked? You mentioned that before.
Oh yes. You don't have to do it, but when you end up with quite dynamic configuration data like what I'm showing here, there's actually it's in the previous example where you'll end up with the the role-based configuration data. It's very easy to miss an if block or put some logic errors in your if statements or in your other logic, your for each loops, and then that configuration data just doesn't exist in the MOF file. That's why you'd run tests against the MOF file to pick that up. When you move away from that, and I'm showing in the journey to a mature DSC configuration, is you'll end up not having to do that as often. But if you're at step 3, which is actually where we're at, where I work now, we're actually at step 3, and I'm working on step 4, which is the fully dynamic configuration data. You end up with missing data in your MOF files, and you don't want to end up with that.
I was actually going to ask about deployment, but I can see that's 5, 6, and 7.
Yes.
I'll leave it.
So that's good. Yeah, we can save some questions out of here. So, and apologies if I'm moving at a super rapid pace because I know most of you haven't used DSC before. So apologies for that. But hopefully, what you'll do is
I'll dissect the Github repo.
yes, and if you go away and you start thinking to yourself, you know what, I'm going to try some DSC. Hopefully, this will trigger some memory. Like, oh, that's right. Wayne said, don't do this because it's silly. Because this, and hopefully you remember. And then it'll save you some time down the track. That's the idea of
You can also come back to the YouTube channel. It is big stream for YouTube. So at the end of the day though, I've done it with other streamers where I've actually gone and revisited their content. So yeah, you can just go back and revisit it.
Yep. And I do suggest you check out Gail's work on this as well because he's been quite inspiring to
Literally
me.
the GitHub repo.
Yep. And what
He's in the channel.
Oh, sweet.
Said thanks for the mention.
Oh, cheers. So if you so what you can do here is you can see here I've just got literally hash tables where I'm just declaring. So you can see here this configuration is applied to every node because I've got a wildcard in here. Then I've got test data. Yeah, every single node.
Oh no, did I see allow plain text password?
Oh yes, and I'm going to explain that. So sorry, yeah, I'm going to explain why I'm allowing plain text password. The reason I have that set is because the engines that I use encrypt the MOF file. So I don't need to have the password encrypted inside an encrypted MOF file. Yeah. So that's why I'm allowing plain text. This is actually something, I'm glad you pointed that out, because this is a problem that people will face, is that they don't set these parameter options, they will inflict pain on themselves down the track. So it's good to know that these exist. And so here I'm configuring a specific node, and these are resources that I want to have applied to this specific node. And then I've obviously got some test roles that I've created here, and then I've got resources that I want to have applied to this specific role. So you can see how that all gets glued together. Hopefully you can see how that all gets glued together in the server configuration file that I showed you. Glues all that together to create a MOF file that includes everything that server needs. I think I've lost a few people, but that's fine. Hopefully this will ring some bells when you go to start using DSC or any other configuration tool in the future. So essentially what you'll do is, I should be able to just run this entirely. Let's just see what happens. I'm in the wrong directory.
Don't know, it just doesn't exist.
Okay. So I ended up with the two MOF files, one for each server, and in each of those I'll have the configuration for not only the individual node configuration, but I'll have the all of the settings for their individual roles.
And that configuration data is actually in the MOF file?
The configuration data itself is not in the MOF file in its current form. You'll end up with DSC resources created for each of the resources that you've declared in the configuration data.
So like where the actual configuration data is referenced in your code, that's already been translated in the MOF file to its actual value?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right. Yeah. Now, I know I'm moving at a super rapid pace here, but I wanted to get to some very cool demos at the end and sort of get you along the journey as fast as possible. Yes, please go.
Is this WMF 5.1 only?
There are changes. Now, you're going to test.
Because you can kind of do Linux DSC, can't you? With
You can do,
but
yeah.
It's very.
They've been talking about DSC, I think 3.0 now, around
Well, with
supporting
PowerShell
Linux
7.
as like a first-class citizen, but that's been on the cards for what, a year, 2 years?
Yeah, people are starting to question whether it's dead or not, and
I wonder if
yeah.
that's tied to PowerShell 7 and .NET Core
And-
3 or.
and Microsoft is assuring us that it's not dead.
I think the trouble is because they're using MOF, it's not something that's easily set on the Linux side, where on Windows they've got the infrastructure and the
Yeah, they
stuff
can
already
control
for
it,
it.
Yeah. I think you will see at some point DSC be a true multi-platform configuration tool, a configuration engine, I should say. The tools will still be provided by someone else,
Yeah.
I believe. Now, I wanted to explain to you, I've sort of jumped over a little bit here. I'll just jump back into the slide deck.
Yeah, it's in LCM.
Yep.
Local configuration manager.
Yeah. Come on, ThinkPad, you can do it. So I want to cover the local configuration manager. So this is a component, it's essentially the DSC engine. So the local configuration manager exists on the Windows servers that have the DSC engine, that are DSC ready, so like 2008 R2 onwards, etc. And it controls the when and how of DSC. So it controls when configuration is applied, and if it's applied, how it's applied, where it gets it from, where do I get the resources from. It controls all of that, and I'll go into detail on the local configuration manager in the next demo. Now, there's two configuration modes available to you. There is push and pull. So push configuration is what I used in the first couple of demos, where I literally create a configuration and then I push it to the local node, and you could push it to another node if you wanted to. So that's applied manually. Vast majority of your configuration will be done using pull servers, or pull configuration that's pulled from a local server, pulled from a remote server. You can use an SMB share for the configuration, or you can use a web server for the configuration, and I'll show you some tools that are available to make this easier.
So you do like an initial push to configure LCM to pull every hour or.
That's right. So you configure the local configuration manager. You configure the local configuration manager. You create a meta configuration. I'll show you that in just a second. That tells the LCM, this is where I get my configuration from.
Here's where you
This
pull-
is where I get my modules
pull
from.
every hour.
That's right. Get it this often. Apply it this often. Report back this often. Yeah. Applies the configuration periodically, and then it retrieves the configuration from a pull server. This actually is not a demo, but I'll show you it anyway. It just goes into the local configuration manager a little bit just to show you what it looks like. I've got two windows open here, so I was getting confused for a second. So I know there's a lot in here. I'll just move this down a little bit. So what you do is you declare this block here, which is the meta configuration, and then you set the amount of time that you want it to check for a new copy of the configuration. So it'll hit the pull server. Do I have a new configuration? It'll actually hash check it to check that it's whether it's newer or not, and that it will pull down the new configuration if a new one is available. You can set the refresh mode, so you'll obviously want that set to pull, and then you can set the configuration mode, and this is actually super important. So what you can do is you can set it to apply only, apply and monitor, or apply and autocorrect. So you can set it to apply the configuration once and never touch it ever again. You can set it to apply the configuration and then just tell you when it drifts from that configuration, or you can set it to apply the configuration and then correct it if it ever drifts.
What is it telling in this instance? Is there like a central server that reports on this, or do you have to build that yourself?
Yeah, so you'll be able to find a pull server that's available, and I'll show you what this will look like with some of the tools later on, so Azure Automation and Systems Manager. You end up with a pull server that can report on it, or you end up with tools like those two that I've just mentioned that can report on it.
But there isn't for like Microsoft application, is there, for like a control panel?
No, there isn't like anything like that. No, there's DSC configuration for pull servers that you can use. So you can build your pull servers using DSC and then have your servers pull their configuration from that. Makes it a little bit easier in setting it up. But to be honest, with the tools that are available outside of that, I probably wouldn't bother with that.
Yeah, I was
Probably
wondering just
just
like an
use-
Ansible tower, is it? Like a control panel or a salt,
But yeah, that's like
salt stack?
Yeah. So this allows module overwrite. I won't go through all of these, I'll just cover the basic ones. So this allows DSC to pull down modules and overwrite them if it needs to. This is an important one. So if you saw that first configuration that I applied where it needed a reboot to continue, if you set this to true, it'll automatically reboot the node and continue. And this is obviously an issue for production servers because if something falls out of configuration that requires a reboot, the production server will just reboot during the middle of the day. Technique that we've come up with in our team is we've written a custom DSC resource. This is just a module, PowerShell module that includes a DSC resource that only reboots on the day it's built. Is that right? Only reboots on the day it's built. And then after that, it doesn't reboot. We've got a resource that we've written that does that. So it sets a flag in the registry to only reboot once for each time it applies the configuration. If it drifts down the track, it won't reboot the server in production hours. It'll hold that reboot so you can control it. And this is the action, once it reboots, what should it do? And that's either whether it should stop or whether it should continue configuring the server. So that's obviously if you're closely watching something and you want to keep an eye on it. And this is how often it will apply the configuration, so this setting there. And then you've obviously got, I won't go into great detail on all the others, but essentially you've got configuration blocks for where it will get the configuration from, which names it will apply.
Is this a separate MOF or is this compiled into the same MOF you deploy to the server? So is it all just blocked into one MOF? So it's got the LCM configuration and then the node configuration?
That's right, yeah. So the LCM configuration is separate to the node configuration.
It's a separate MOF.
I don't even know if it actually ends up being a MOF.
Right.
You just set it and then forget it, basically. And you can get the local configuration manager status using a PowerShell commandlet to work out what mode is it in.
Yeah, but
how is it configured?
You must push this down with a MOF.
You can apply this directly on the server.
Like you can use DSC to apply this, or you can just do it manually. Like this is a separate engine, it seems, from DSC. Like you're configuring LCM as like another program.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
no, I get that.
so this controls how you apply DSC. So you do this first, and then your configuration is applied.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. What came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yes, this comes first. This
Do
always
you
comes
put
first.
it in the same MOF as the node configuration? And then push it down?
No, but you can reconfigure it after the fact. So what you can do there is you could set reboot node if needed to true, and then at the end of your configuration, or towards the end of your configuration, you could set that to false. So after you've hit all the resources that require a reboot, like installing Active Directory domain services or installing some software or renaming the computer, you could then reconfigure the local configuration manager to turn the reboot node if needed. You can turn that to false. Yeah. So there's I know I'm smashing a lot of information here, and if you want to go back and look at any of this, please go back and look at the video again. But I wanted to get towards the end to show you the end game, and there's a lot to get through there if everyone's brand new to DSC. It took me a long time to get across DSC, and I don't expect everyone to get across it in one night, but I wanted to sort of brief you on a whole range of DSC related content, and then you can go back and watch this video in your own time, and you can experiment with DSC and start your own journey, configuration journey. My goal here is to get everyone using configuration management, not using DSC. So I want to show you the advantages of using configuration management, not specifically using DSC.
What's the difference between configuration repository web server and the resource repository web server?
Yeah, so that you could have a separate server that contains your modules, that the DSC.
Oh, okay. And so that will pull it down instead of
Yeah.
installing it on each server. You can have that central.
Yeah,
So
and it'll just
it's a bit like its own package manager in a sense.
essentially, and you could have it. And that can be an SMB share as well. It doesn't need to be a HTTP server. So you could have a HTTP server for the configuration, and then you could have a different, like an SMB share for the modules.
So any URI.
Yeah, any URI. Yeah.
Is that where you pull in certs as well?
Yeah. So you can pull certificates from there as well. Yeah. Show you now. I want to get to some of the tools that make DSC usable. So you can see some of the challenges that if you were to just start your DSC journey now without having this information, why did I do that?
I'm surprised Microsoft haven't made a control center product for it.
Yeah, I am surprised. They obviously
Azure
wanted,
automation.
they wanted
obviously.
it to be a platform
Yeah.
and then allow other people to make the tools. And that's where you've ended up with things like Chef and Puppet and Ansible and all those sorts of things being able to use the Dsc
DC, yeah.
resources, being able to use the engine, but not necessarily being a Dsc tool. And they've obviously got it's built in such a way so that you can use it in full without anything else, but you don't have to. It's extremely
Yeah, at least there's no
flexible.
licensing there or anything. You just go for it. So.
Yeah. So I'm just getting up to where I was. I'm gonna hit the same button again. Oh my god.
B. There we go. Azure
So-
automation.
So Azure Automation provides you a Microsoft hosted pull server. Do you have questions?
No.
No, cool. Azure Automation provides a Microsoft hosted pull server that stores your modules and your secrets and your variables for free. And then you pay up to $8 per node per month for on-premises servers or servers outside of Azure, so you could configure AWS servers with this as well. Any nodes that are running in Azure, so if you're 100% Azure, this is free. So it's definitely worth considering if you have no on-premise servers, no servers in AWS.
It's actually not bad.
Azure
I've
automation.
got to play with it. It's not too bad.
Yeah, and I'll give you a bit of a demo of it in a minute. And it also works with ARM templates. So if you've got your infrastructure as code configured in ARM templates, you can apply the configuration, the desired state configuration, as part of your infrastructure as code deployment. So you can combine the two. So you end up with
a
a,
layer on top.
that's right. So you end up with
Well, the ARM will deploy the infrastructure, and then obviously DSC does the application configuration.
that's right. Yeah. So you end up with an end-to-end solution that deploys everything, completely automated.
So it probably just does it through the agent.
Yeah.
The Azure agent.
So let's see if I can do an Azure Automation demo.
Yeah, it's pretty handy. I'd enroll some like on-prem servers straight into it. Super easy. Is it fine?
Let me just see. I'm just going to go. Actually, I'll go into the Azure portal first. I'll start there. That's probably the way to go. So I'm just going here. So that was. I clicked.
Dark mode.
Yeah.
No.
No, go there. Okay, so Azure Automation account. I've configured one of these. This allows you to do your state configuration using DSC. Now, what you can do is, what I was saying is that you can create variables. So you can store some variables for information that you want to put in your configuration at compilation time. And then you can obviously have certificates as well. And there will be credentials in here as well. I'm missing that. There it is there. So you can securely store your credentials in here as well. And they'll be encrypted. They'll remain encrypted from the time they're placed into Azure Automation to when they're configured on the node. So at no point will there be clear text. There actually is an update you need to install to make sure that happens. Make sure you're on the latest update. Otherwise you may end up with some unencrypted passwords and some MOF files. Once your Windows server is fully up to date, they'll remain encrypted from end to end.
Modules gallery as well.
What's that, sorry? Yes,
Modules?
that's right. Yeah, so all you can pull your put your modules in here. You can go out to the gallery, grab your modules, and then import them in here.
Yeah.
And then, as required, the DSC local configuration manager will pull them down from Azure Automation as required to configure the configuration.
Can you upload your own modules?
Yes, you can. You can write your own modules, and then you can just click Add Module. Obviously, you can script this as well to bring your module in. A little gotcha that I found here, and I'll just mention this just in case anyone else runs into it, is I actually was zipping up my files using just Windows, the built-in Windows zip engine, and it fails. And I don't know why.
Windows has an ancient zip.
Yeah, so I actually ended up, I swapped to 7-zip to zip the files up.
7-zip's the ultimate tool.
Yeah, so I got around that bug, and that baffled me for ages. Because we have quite an extensive, where I work, we have a quite extensive module that contains a whole bunch of custom DSC resources that do a range of things like securely downloading files and configuring our antivirus and stuff like that. It wouldn't, like I had this in a Devops CI/CD pipeline, and I was just, every time we commit to master, it would upload the module to Azure Automation, but it would just not unzip, and I couldn't understand why. It took me ages to work it out. Swapped it to 7-zip, and away I went.
What's on the schedules?
Yeah, schedules is not used for this.
No.
But schedules is used for Azure Automation runbooks, which I'm not covering today.
No. So how do you get your
So
state configuration?
let's go here.
Ah,
So here, and this is actually quite a nice UI. Microsoft has recently updated this. They left it like the way it was for quite some time, and they've just only recently updated this with this new view. And in here you can see configurations, and then the configurations that have been compiled, and then you can obviously go out to the gallery and grab configurations that give you a bit of an idea of what configurations you could use.
The
what they look
compiled
like.
configurations are your MOFs, correct?
That's right. The compiled configurations are your MOF files. That's right. And they'll be pulled. You'll configure the local configuration manager, and they will go out, find these files, pull the MOF file down, then apply it.
So what do you get if you hit compose configuration? Does it like spit up as a simple editor or
No.
at the top?
Oh, sorry.
Compose configuration.
Yeah, what is this? I've never used this. What does this do? Okay, this looks like it allows you to edit a configuration.
I've used basic source code.
Yeah, I actually have never clicked on that, to be honest. So there you go. I didn't even ever use it. So it looks like you could build a configuration there through there. There's some sort of wizard. I don't know how feature rich that is. Okay, so what you'll do is you'll build a server, and then you will configure the local configuration manager, and that will onboard it into Azure Automation, and then it will appear here. It'll appear on this page here.
Yeah, I think if you hit add, it will say Azure or non-Azure, is it?
Yeah, so it only allows you to add Azure VMs from here. Yeah. I think it used to say add non-Azure as well, and then it would give you a script or a link that you
spit
could
out
go
a
to.
script. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've actually got that script on my servers.
Oh, there you go.
Sitting on there.
It's a small link on the right.
Oh, is it?
Add
Is it
some
hiding
more.
there, is it?
Add
Ah,
more.
there, yeah, and this will take you out to a page. And then what I suggest you do is have this script on your server when eventually we find it. I don't even know where it is on there. Yeah, when you eventually have that script on there, you'll have that server on, and then you'll invoke it when you build your server.
Is that the, which script is that one?
This is the one that configures the local configuration manager to onboard it into Azure.
Okay,
Automation.
Yeah, it's basically automatic scripts, configures
Yeah.
LCM to speak to
Now,
Azure Automation.
when you're using an ARM template, you can actually have that done for you. The ARM template will run the script on the node for you and onboard it into Azure Automation. So you don't need to run that separately.
So that script's separately to installing hybrid runbook worker roles?
Yeah, completely different.
Yep,
Yep.
okay, perfect.
Yeah. Hybrid workers are used for runbooks and Azure Automation,
Yeah.
for anyone that's unfamiliar. This is completely separate to that.
So it doesn't rely on the MOM agent?
No, it doesn't rely on any
Okay.
agents. It's just the built-in Windows server,
Yep.
local configuration manager.
Yep.
So you can grab an off-the-shelf Windows Server WIM, and then you can onboard it into Azure Automation by executing that script on it.
So I'm guessing that script just generates dynamically and points to that specific
Yeah.
automation account.
Well, it's just got a
DSC
enrollment
configuration.
key or something like that.
Let me
Okay.
show you new DSC node. Oops, I just lost that, sorry. So this is the script that actually, sorry, my user interface is messing me up there. So this is the script that onboards there's a lot in here because it's actually a custom script. It's the Microsoft script with some added stuff around it. And you can see this is where you can run the script, pass it a registration key, set some additional configuration, and then it'll onboard it into Azure Automation. I have to scroll through this very quickly because this is a script that we use in our production environment.
Right, slow down the video.
Yeah, you can pause it, and see everything you need to know. This is essentially the Microsoft script with some custom stuff
Yeah.
added to it, just to add some logging and all this sort of stuff to make it a little bit nicer for us to use. You can see here where I've got the configuration mode set to apply and autocorrect, and I'm not allowing module overwrite in this particular example. And there's a whole bunch of other variables you can pass in. This is the Microsoft code here, and you can pass in that. So what I have is, and I wish I had actually run this before, I have this code. Cancel this. As a demo. So we've covered all that information there. Now we have the DSC window open, do we? Yes, we do. And then I'll just show you this. So now what I have here is for anyone who isn't familiar, this is Azure Devops, formerly Visual Studio Team Services. This allows you to have a CI/CD pipeline for anything. Now you don't have to use this for software. You could use this for configuration, like I'm about to now. So I have an app, and I know I'm smashing you with information here, but you can go and do your research and learn some stuff about this, in greater detail. I just want to show you the demo. So what I have here is I have a repository that has my configuration in it. And when I make an edit to this, I'll just literally save that. You can see that's actually in my master branch. Typically you wouldn't have that set up, but I've just made an edit to my master branch. That would normally happen as part of a pull request, code review, and then it would go from your feature branch or from your development branch into master. And then Azure Devops has a trigger that updates this configuration every time, pushes this configuration to Azure Automation every time I edit it in master. So I'll just show you that here.
Yeah, they're looking at doing this for Intune builds.
Yeah.
So you like spec it out in JSON.
So what this runs is, this is very simple. It connects to my Azure subscription, and then it runs the deploy configuration PowerShell file and then passes it a path. So literally all it's doing is executing a PowerShell script. Now if I go into the repository here, I have a compile configuration, is that what I called it? Deploy configuration. I might have the wrong one open here. No, let me just go back. Apologies for that. Well, that actually looked like what I had open. Oh yeah, sorry. Deploy configuration. I don't know how I ended up with that, but anyway, we're here now. So all it does is sets my Azure Automation account name, sets the resource group in Azure. For anyone that's familiar with Azure, you'll know about resource groups. Then it imports the configuration, and then it starts a compilation job with the configuration data. Okay, so we've seen all that process before. Now the compilation is actually not running on my PC, it's running in Azure. And Azure will compile it for me. I'm hoping everyone's with me.
It's a very long command line.
It is a very long command, but yeah. And I'll tell you, the amount of times that commandlet failed when I first was working on this, hopefully me going through this today will help anyone who tries to do the same thing. So I've showed you what happens in Azure DevOps, and we'll just go back to here, and what we can see here is we have a configuration called DSC. That's the configuration that I pushed. It's now running a compilation job there. You can see some suspended ones. That's me failing. That's what you'll see in Azure Automation when it fails to compile because of some issue. I'll actually click on this and see what mistake I've made here. So this is where I've and this is what I mean by having difficulty troubleshooting. That's why you want a modular configuration, is you end up having trouble troubleshooting this because it doesn't give you much information. This is not bad. This is actually a really good error message. They're not normally this nice. This is actually telling me that there's a particular variable that's missing. Variable asset not found, navigate to the asset. It actually literally tells me exactly what to do, and there's a variable missing called server description. So I needed to go and add that variable into Azure Automation. So hopefully that configuration will compile. Let me spin up a VM. I should have done this first. Oops, not to do, go into that. Well, that was close. Don't show my to-do list at work. Let's run this.
You, just FYI, you're on the default switch.
Oh yeah, that's fine. Let me just go and... Oh, Jesus. Bear with me.
Quiet. Is it a string? Is it not a string?
Yeah. Just going to go and copy that again. Okay, so what this is doing now is, for anyone who hasn't done this before, this is actually really handy for a lab environment. Has anyone heard about PowerShell remoting through the VM bus on Hyper-V?
Yes.
No.
Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm creating a virtual machine in Hyper-V, then I'm using the virtual machine bus, so the Hyper-V, the hypervisor bus, to enter the virtual machine, then rename it, then execute the onboarding script into Azure Automation, and then it'll start applying the configuration.
Also, okay, so you're using the onboard parameter.
Yeah, tells me where to onboard it into. That that script there, I'll actually show you this new VM script. I think I can show you that. So essentially all it's doing here is it's creating a virtual machine. I'm going to scroll through this fairly quickly. So it's creating a virtual machine based on a parent hard disk. Then it's setting up, creating a VHD, creating a VM, starting the virtual machine.
There's the if Azure.
What's that, sorry?
I saw the if Azure region on the
Yeah.
VM.
So down here, this is where I'm doing an invoke command, and I'm passing the script block to rename the computer, and then I am saying which VM name I want to connect to execute the script on. So I'm using a invoke command with the VM name parameter for anyone who hasn't used that, and that's what that does. That's remoting over the Hyper-V bus. So that should be onboarding, starting that virtual machine, renaming it, and then onboarding it into Azure Automation. So you can see there's my virtual machine there. So essentially all it's doing is there's a PowerShell script in C, and then Dsc, and then there's everything that I need. Forget that file, that's just a note. And essentially there's an unattended file, so it immediately configures Windows Server, basic unattended file, and then the new Dsc node script is executed to bring it into Azure, and I'll cover that one in just a moment. I should have run that demo at the start, so I'm going to let that demo run, and I'm just going to quickly cover AWS Systems Manager. I'll let that run in the background. Oh, I hit the wrong button again. Oh my god.
While you're doing that run, I had a question. Is Azure DevOps free?
Azure DevOps is free for up to 5 users, but there's a limited amount of time you can run on their build service. You're probably
380 minutes, is it?
Yeah, something like that. You want to end up having your own build service. If you end up with Visual Studio Enterprise licenses, if you have developers in your team, you can bring them in and use their Visual Studio Enterprise licenses to get
Yeah, I
more
think they've
minutes.
got all those.
Yeah, you end up with unlimited minutes on one build server, I think, per Visual Studio Enterprise license.
But you can run a build server on your own machine.
That's right. Yeah. And running it on your own machine is actually good because you can.
They recommend it.
Oh, do that. There you go. Yeah. So yeah, it gives you greater control.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought you had a service laptop, so it'll burst into flames.
The ThinkPad isn't much better, to be honest. So AWS Systems Manager. Anyone familiar with AWS Systems Manager? No. Excellent. This is great. It's an excellent tool. It allows you to completely automate all sorts of stuff in AWS and out of AWS, and it's mostly free. So you can have an AWS account, not pay a cent, and use this to manage your entire server fleet.
Does it used to be called OpsWorks, or is that a different thing?
There's a different thing. Yeah. Is OpsWorks Chef in AWS?
Yes.
I think
Is
so.
that what they renamed it?
Yeah, I think
I just remember
OpsWorks is
reading about
AWS
OpsWorks.
Chef implementation. So AWS Systems Manager used to be called Simple Systems Manager, and then it was EC2 Config before that. So they've renamed it a few times. This is the new brand. They've got a new user interface for it. It's very nice. It's come a long way. It stores your configurations for you. Well, it actually doesn't. They get stored in S3. But it does store your modules. Yeah, actually, they get stored in S3 as well. It stores your secrets and your variables. And then it can apply your MOF files for you. This is not a pull server. So it doesn't use the local configuration manager to pull the configurations down in the way that Azure Automation does. Azure Automation is an actual pull server implementation. This uses the AWS Systems Manager agent to apply the configuration for you. So it reads the MOF file and applies it. And there's some differences, some very crazy differences there. Like I said, it's mostly free. You pay for the stuff that you store on S3, but you don't have to store a lot. Like your MOF files are a kilobyte or two. Yeah. Your modules you can pull from the PowerShell gallery, and your software you probably want to put on the S3 bucket, but you could put it wherever you want, to be honest. You could put it on Azure if you wanted to. So I'll just do a quick tour of AWS Systems Manager. So, failed, yay. So, show you here. So the way AWS Systems Manager works is it works based on documents, and documents are PowerShell scripts or Linux bash scripts. Am I getting that right? Bash scripts.
Born again shell.
Yeah, in JSON format. So it actually wraps them in JSON that includes the metadata and then the actual script. I know Michael loves this, but we actually write a PowerShell function that converts your PowerShell script into an AWS Systems Manager document. So you just pass it a bunch of information and it converts it into JSON format for you to save you a whole bunch of that pain. There's a document in here called AWS Apply Dsc Moths. This is fairly new. AWS announced this late last year. It didn't exist until then. You had to sort of run your own sort of setup to do this. But now that they've got this available, it makes it significantly easier to apply moth files using Systems Manager. So what you end up with is documents, and these documents are executed on your managed instances, and your managed instances are your servers. So you onboard, you install the Systems Manager agent. You can see the steps here. So you install the Systems Manager agent, then you configure the role that it uses. I'll show you that in a second. And then you centrally manage your servers from here. There's a whole bunch in here that I'm not going to cover up. One of my favourite ones is actually Patch Manager, but I'm not covering that right now. I don't know what just happened then. But anyway, must have done some gesture to switch or something. So what you do is you create an activation. Probably an activation or two in here. Yep. So you create an activation, and then you register your server into Systems Manager using the activation. And you can see, I've created an activation that allows for one registration, and then I've registered one instance in this example. That was probably me testing. And then they will show up in here. I actually might execute this as well.
Is an activation tied to a node?
You can have one activation for any number of servers, but you have to set an expiry date. I think they can be at most 30 days into the future. So I generally just do one activation per server. Now I'll explain why. It's because when you create an activation, you can set a default instance name, which makes it easier to work out what you onboarded, to be honest. Yeah.
It's not some weird hash.
It looks like there might actually be a limit of 1,000 managed instances. So if you've got more than 1,000 servers, then maybe you need to change some settings and maybe pay some money to AWS.
What's Patch Manager like?
Patch Manager is very good. We use Patch Manager in production. It's very good.
Oh.
Yeah. And it's completely free. Just essentially allows you to.
I think I might start our AWS.
What's that, sir?
Nothing's completely free, especially when it comes to these cloud providers.
Yeah, I don't actually know why AWS is giving away so much of Systems
They're
Manager for
harvesting
free.
your data. They're selling it on.
Oh, they must be doing that. Yeah, but Systems Manager has been only recently have I seen small amounts of this become premium services. We manage over 200 Windows servers with Patch Manager, and we don't pay a cent.
AWS has stated that one of their goals is to always provide tools.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to win over administrators.
Yeah.
If they're making the administrators' lives easier,
Yeah.
then they're going to get more work.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll get more VMs, more storage.
And it's much easier to onboard a server into Systems Manager from AWS than it is to
So
onboard
why
an
charge for
on-prem
the
server
servers
or
when
an
you're
Azure
going to
server.
use the rest of the services anyway?
Yeah.
Microsoft.
Yeah. And there's some, and this automation, which I won't cover as well, but this automation node here allows you to automate AWS at the infrastructure level, not inside the instance. So it has various levels, and obviously there's compliance and all sorts of other information that you can get from here. This is a great tool, and it's very inexpensive. Okay, so that's all I really. State Manager. Let me cover this. I do want to briefly cover this. So State Manager is where you will apply your DSC moths. You'll end up with an association. I'll actually show you this. So you just provide a name, and then you select which document you want to apply. So that's obviously, we want to apply some moth files. And then you say where it is on S3, so which moth do you want to apply. And then there's a whole bunch of other settings here. I won't go into detail into each of these. But obviously, you can just report to say, is this server in compliance or not? You might have some compliance rules that you need to abide by. And then this can tell you whether you fall in or out of compliance without actually reconfiguring the server. You can store your
See?
PowerShell modules in a
You've
bucket.
done your config, you've compiled your MOFs, you upload them to S3, you configure this, then this pushes them down to the AWS agent on the server,
Yeah, then the yeah,
and
that's
then the
right.
agent will just talk to the local DSC, does whatever underneath with them.
Yeah, that's right.
Calls PowerShell.
That's it in a nutshell. Yep. And it'll reach out to S3 and grab anything that you've asked it to grab. So grab some modules from S3 or grab them from the PS gallery. I love that this has like a space in it. It's
Yeah.
like how carefree they are about PS. Like, it's just, what is this? I mean, some of the best PowerShell stuff is actually on AWS, so it's odd that that has a space in it. That little bit of detail is missing there. But
So in this instance, the LCM config is basically null and void because it's all done.
you
through
don't use the
agent.
LCM at all on this. Yeah, the AWS Systems Manager agent applies the MOF for you.
So
essentially,
essentially applying like local host every time essentially through the agent.
that's right, essentially. Yeah, it says there's the MOF file and then starts the DSC engine to apply it. And the local configuration manager does not go out and reach and grab new MOF files and all that sort of stuff. That's all avoided. And obviously you can log to S3 and then store your compliance information. Pre-reboot script is actually quite nice as well, so you can send a notification when a server's about to reboot because of configuration management and stuff like that. And then you can target your servers based on tags or by manually selecting the instance, or you can apply the configuration to every instance that you have managed. So the tag one is useful because you could declare tags like role and the file server, and then apply the file server MOF to your file server.
Yeah, tag all your North American servers. Or,
That's right. Yeah.
So in some sense, you're kind of like doing what you've done in PowerShell previously. You just obviously got a nice GUI in front of it.
That's right. So
Yeah.
people who don't know PowerShell can now apply configuration to servers.
that's
even if you do know
Yeah.
PowerShell, you don't necessarily want to go through all that management every day.
No, that's right. You might not want to. Yeah, and it's really nice because this is very easy to report on. Obviously, you can pull PowerShell data files and
Yeah.
report on them, but just hitting the AWS API and here's my service, here are the roles I've got configured, are they compliant or not? It's really simple.
Yeah.
There you go, management, I'm compliant.
Done.
Yep. So that's quite nice. And then you can control how often the AWS agent applies the MOF file. So I'm actually just going to fire that up. Hopefully my Azure one has finished deploying. I'll just go quickly here. Apologies for bombarding you tonight, but hopefully you've got something useful out of this. I'll just run this one here. I've skipped a little bit just to try and speed this up a little bit. Just making sure I've covered everything here. I'll cover tags in a little bit. I bet this is going to error because of PS1. I'm actually just going to change that name. PS2, doesn't matter. Okay, so that's just using the same Hyper-V configuration, and now it's just going to start the VM and then onboard it into Azure Automation. Now, what this has done, this is back to the Azure one. I'm flipping back to the demo so you don't have to wait for the demos to run. So what this has done is it has onboarded into Azure Automation, applied the LCM meta configuration that we talked about to set up the pool server, and then it's just cleaned up a little bit, deleted some files that it doesn't need, and now I've actually asked it to start configuring. So if I go back to the server now, let's go back to, oops,
Quick, remember the password.
yeah, super secret password. Let's just see if this has worked. Wait for PowerShell to do its thing. Sorry, that's super small, I know, but essentially you can see there that the status is success, and it's requiring I don't know, type is reboot. I'm actually not sure what that means, to be honest. Number of resources 4. Now I want to show you what this looks like in the Azure portal because this gives you the visibility so you can see what this actually looks like. So you can see that it's applied. Let's go back to Azure now. Close this. So that obviously that compilation job worked. And I can go back to my nodes. And then there's my file server 1. It's compliant. It's run its initial. It's configured the computer. Configured a local user account. set up a file share, set up a folder, and then set up a file share, and it's all compliant. So you can see the reporting is quite nice there, and when you come back out, Microsoft has done a great job of improving this UI, so you end up with green, red, yellow, etc. For the reporting information there. While the AWS one is building, where's the AWS one here? Do we have questions?
So you're saying the mob file is encrypted.
For Azure Automation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that something that's like a feature of DSC that Azure's using, or is that something that Azure Automation adds on top?
Yeah, so you can use a certificate to encrypt the MOF file using a traditional pull server, and Azure Automation encrypts it as well.
Okay.
So you end up with it both ways, basically.
And the key for that certificate, I take it's deployed to the server?
Yeah, available in Azure Automation. You actually can't see it. Yeah. So what this is doing now is onboarding into Systems Manager, getting the activation that we talked about, so automatically doing that. And then it is going to download the the AWS Systems Manager agent, and then it will configure it. I'll actually show you the script for that. Down here. And someone remind me to delete this IAM user later. Now, hopefully no one had enough time to type that in. So
Quick pause.
Essentially what this is doing is it is downloading the agent here. Oh, not here, this is where I'm doing it down here. It's the on-premise agent. Server is on-premise. This is literally doing a download of the file, and then it's running the install, and then it's passing in the activation code, the activation ID, the region, and then I'm telling it to restart. So that's all it's doing. It's just, you actually are applying the activation at install time of the agent. So the agent gets installed with the activation. Does that make sense? Are there any questions about that?
Can you just go right again for a sec?
Yep. I'll make all of this code available as well.
Including the secret keys?
Including the secret keys. But they will soon be null and void. So you can see I'm onboarding it into a particular region there.
Okay, yeah.
Then,
So how do you manage the activation state? Like obviously if it expires after 30 days.
the activation is only used when you first install it.
Yeah.
Then you can go ahead and you can go and delete that activation. So once the install is completed, you can have another line in your script that goes and deletes the activation. You don't need it anymore.
So it's like a
Yeah.
registration token type?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't need it after that. I should have actually run this demo a little bit earlier because it takes a little while to actually on board to download the software of my 4G and then install the agent. I used PS2, didn't I? So I'll just go there.
Wayne was also frantically trying to get this demo to work.
This demo did not want to work. Actually, I want to show you one thing else. I'll show you one thing else while we're here, while that's running. In here, it's here. So, I want to show you something here because this is something that AWS does that's quite unique. So you have this syntax here, and what this means is, obviously anyone familiar with AWS knows that you can tag resources in AWS, like you can in Azure as well, you can tag resources in Azure. What this does is, the Systems Manager agent will, at runtime, go and pull these tags from the managed instance, and then apply them, and then write them into the configuration file and apply them. So you could have the computer's name in there, or anything else that you want to apply that's just a plain text, piece of text, you can apply those there. And then you can see this one here, what this is actually doing, and this code looks a little bit iffy, but essentially what the AWS Systems Manager agent is going and looking for a secret called administrator, and then the Systems Manager agent will replace the password here for the password that's in the Systems Manager secrets. I'll show you that. And I'm matching you. I'll go to the parameter store. You'll see I've got a secret called administrator that's a secure string. So we'll go and pull that password down and then use that information to apply that to the node.
So So the equivalent would be key vault for Azure.
Yeah, so you can see how you can store the passwords in Azure Automation. That's how you store the passwords in Systems Manager. So you can see here that I've got a managed instance named PS2. If I go into that now, I can apply some tags. And the tags that I need to apply, if I go back to my code, I'm going to need to apply the computer name and the description. So you just add those tags. Was there a space in there?
No.
No space.
And then there was a space like just before, like at the end of
Yeah.
Easy instance tags, right?
Yeah, these are Systems Manager instance tags.
So
Different,
not
not
EC2
EC2 tags. They are separate, and you can apply configuration. You can read EC2 tags in the configuration as well. The syntax is just slightly different. There'll be a tag and then a colon, then EC2, and then the tag.
Sorry.
You're right.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, I'm allergic to the user interface as well, to be honest with you. But it's not a bad place to go and throw some tags in. So State Manager will automatically apply the association that I've created. We've got a failed there, and that's expected. The failed will be there because I didn't have the tags. Didn't have the tags there. So I'm just going to tell it to apply now. It'll go into a pending state. You'll see all the attempts I had before I started today, getting this ready. Some successes. So that's always good. It's hiding all my failures. This is amazing. I love this tool.
There was a lot of failures. There was a lot.
Yeah.
It's like, it's failed again!
I actually hit a permission issue. You have to create an IAM user that grants access to read information in AWS to make this work. And that was what I was having issues with. Let's refresh that and see if that eventually applies. It's still pending. It'll take a little while to apply, and then we'll get some output here. Okay, that's actually all I had for today. For tonight. If there's any questions from anyone here or anyone online, I'll take them now.
Why did you choose Dsc?
So I chose Dsc. Very good question, because everyone thinks you're mad when you choose. They do. Like if you look online, like I spend a lot of time on Twitter. It's a good place for tech people to hang out and chat.
It always has strong opinions.
Yeah, it does. And a lot of people are saying like, who uses Dsc in production? No one. That sort of stuff. And the reason I chose Dsc is because in our team we were hiring PowerShell experts, and we didn't want them to have to learn another language in addition to PowerShell. So it makes hiring easier. If they know PowerShell, there's not a lot to know Dsc as well. And I mean to write Dsc, not write all the extra stuff you need to write to actually make it work. That can already be in place. But writing desired state configuration is very easy. Yeah, if you know PowerShell. Yeah. I don't even know what other languages the other configuration tools use, but they are. If you want to write custom resources, it's not PowerShell.
Chef and Puppet use a Ruby DSL.
Yep.
Ansible's straight Python.
It's PowerShell for Windows. So you can write PowerShell modules.
Okay. Yep.
And Salt Stack, I think, is a Python mix.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're using all sorts of different stuff. So it just makes hiring a little bit easier, and configuring if you already know PowerShell a little bit easier, because it's just hash tables. We've got a whole bunch of engineers in my team now, and all they do to configure new servers is write a hash table, and away it goes. Yeah, so it makes it very easy. I don't know what Microsoft plans to do with Dsc. Like they obviously plan to do something with it, but we haven't heard anything for so long that people started to get worried. Like, what is actually happening? Because they made a lot of promises, and I don't know if anyone saw it, but they did a little demo of the new Dsc engine which is written in native code, which is much faster, and that's all we saw. Yeah.
I don't even know if they know what they're doing.
Yeah. And to be honest, I didn't get a lot of confidence when I saw the presentations on Dsc. So I like it, and hopefully it has a future. Right now it's excellent for managing Windows servers, so pretty happy with where it is.
We found that Dsc, like we only really use it to invoke individual resources. We found it's actually really good, and there's some good resources out there to actually download. But I've never really gone into the configuration management with pull servers and stuff like that. So it's interesting to see how it's all set up.
Yeah, and you can see it is a little bit clunky, and that's why a lot of people just sort of get stuck. You know, they hit those initial hurdles and they're like, this is just too hard to manage. You know, why would I
I'm
bother?
surprised at the rough edges it seems to have. I would have thought Microsoft would have had a bit more polish for their environment type of stuff. But
Yeah, and writing with PowerShell 5, was it 5.1? Was it which version of PowerShell introduced classes? PowerShell 5?
PowerShell 5.
5, yeah. PowerShell 5, you can write class-based Dsc resources, which are extremely easy to write. All you do is just create a class that has 3 methods: test set and
Yeah.
get,
Yep.
and then bang, that's your Dsc resource.
Yeah.
You just run some code to test to see if it's in the desired state, and if that fails in the test method, it'll run the set method, and then it'll only run the get method if you ask it to go and get a Dsc resource, you know, the status of the Dsc resource. So that's where I'll run that for. I don't think this demo is actually going to finish anytime soon, and I don't want to keep everyone here all night. Oh, there we go. It did apply. So the reporting is done through compliance, and I actually turned this off because I had a little bit of an issue with this, so I can't actually show you this particular part. Well, at least I thought I turned it off. Maybe I didn't turn it off. So you can see this. This is me. So you can see here where it's applied the configuration. I actually thought I turned that off, so that's great. That's there. Yeah, so you get the reporting there as well. Yes. Cool. That's all I had for tonight, guys. Thank you for coming. Hopefully you found some useful information there in amongst all of that.
Oh yes. So Gail mentioned that you can DM him on the PowerShell Slack in
Okay.
the #DSC channel.
Okay, so with regards to that, what I will do is I'll actually add those URLs. So it's actually a Discord and a Slack joined together. So I use Discord because my Discord's
Discord.
Yeah, Discord.
That's why, yeah.
But basically, yeah, they're just interchangeably. I can give you guys the URL. I'll chuck it up in our Slack channel, and you can it's full of really good stuff. There's a lot of people online there, so you can there's lots of questions, and you can provide content, request content, and yeah, so it's really good.
Yeah. Terrific. That's it for me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyway, thanks, Wayne.
Yeah.
I think, any questions or anything, so for guys online, and things like that, I think what we can probably do is you can just DM me, and then I can pass them on to Wayne. Once Wayne is online in the PowerShell Slack channel, you can then just DM him directly, and he can provide that information. Yeah, that's pretty much that. Thanks, guys, for coming.
Rana has a question. Sorry.
Okay.
He did ask this before and it got buried. Has anyone tried DSC with Windows 10?
Yes.
Would it be feasible?
Yeah.
Yeah, it works
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah,
it
it
is.
works great.
Okay.
Yep, looks great.
Yeah.
I actually started writing DSC to configure my laptop, my Surface.
Yes.
So I ended up rebuilding it so much, I started writing DSC to configure my Surface.
How do I get on the telly?
It does a good job.
Sorry?
How do I get on the telly? I just want to show some.
Oh, you want to project to the television?
Yeah. Do you need to be on the Wi-Fi or something?
Are you trying to...
You want to show us something,
Yeah.
not the streamers.
Not the streamers?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine.
We
Yeah,
can,
you
we
could
can,
just...
we can end the stream.
Yeah, we can just end the stream. Anyway, thanks, guys, online. Hope to see you guys next time. Bye for now.